but I'm not sure exactly what's going to be in there. I wanted it to be a surprise, so let's see. Our winter sowing is long behind us, and so today we're going to take a look at the results to see how they did. You're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to be transplanting out the ones that worked and go over some tips. So today we are going to do a check-in on our winter sowing to see what worked and what did not. And we're going to go ahead and transplant them out. I'm just going to be using what I have, like grow bags or containers, maybe even one of the raised beds just to fit everything in. If you have never been here before, my name is Marlene. Welcome to my home and garden channel. Now let's get to transplanting. But first, let's see how they did. So this is how it all started here, guys. The Lush and Dew Seed Company sent me some seeds, and I was quite happy to try them out to see how they did. I cannot wait to see what's in here. It's a little bit of a surprise because it is cold tolerant, and that's what I asked them for because we're doing winter sowing. But I'm not sure exactly what's going to be in there. I wanted it to be a surprise, so let's see. So right here, everything has been planted out, and these are the seeds that have been left behind, for years. I'll plan to use them in the future, and we're going to go over to see exactly what happened. I had set them out here, out in the cold, and these were all cold hardy, as it says. So we're going to see how they performed as the weeks passed. So over here now, the kale, you can see the kale right there. You can see the mustard greens. That was not good. I did not like that. So that would have been a bad because it sprouted very quickly, unexpectedly. The kale did pretty good. The beets did pretty good as well, but we have something to discuss about that to avoid as far as those go. The cabbage looks pretty good as well too. These are the bad right here. The onions and the lettuce, they did not germinate at all, and I only got one carrot. Anyway, these are the grow bags that we're going to be using today to plant them out. We also have some marigold here, which is great for companion planting. And I did a recent video showing you different flowers that you can use, 7 different flowers that are great to help to keep your vegetable garden happy and healthy. And I'll link it at the end for you. So over here we have our potting soil, and we have everything lined up, ready to get going. So we'll go through step by step and go over the tips as well. And these are actually 5-gallon bags, and it's a very inexpensive option. And especially if you are limited for space, it's good to have it. Over here, I have some lavender that I had transplanted in one a few months ago, and it's doing pretty good. And I also did a previous video talking about 9 herbs that are great for your vegetable garden to help them to be happy, healthy, and you'll see all the good things. And I'll link this at the end for you. You can check it out when you're finished here. And then over here, now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the first one. And of course, I always go in and put my my labels there. Not always, but I always try to put my label, because especially when they look similar to each other, sometimes it's kind of hard to tell what is what. And you're like, what is this again? I can't remember. So we put the label there to make sure we know what is what. And so the first tip is when you are going to be up-potting your transplants, whether after winter, whether the ones you planted indoors, you want to make sure that the soil is moist before you take it out. Not too runny, but moist. And you want to have a little bit of soil still left back on the roots, because what that does is that it helps to prevent transplant shock, because you're basically moving your plant from a spot where it was happy enough. Not perfect because they're small and they're competing for nutrition, but as they get larger, it's not going to be a good place for them to be. But you're moving them from one place to another. So you want to make it as easy for them to, be able to adapt from the previous spot. And over here, guys, we're doing construction on the backyard. It's still in progress. So we weren't able to use our large raised bed. So we have to make do with these grow bags that we have here, which I was quite happy to do to try them out. This is the second time I'm going to be using grow bags. And over here, once I got to this point, I realized that they were not going to be enough for all the little seedlings that I had, a little transplant that I had. So I'm going to have to get some containers as well to help out in terms of, having enough space for them, because they have to be spaced out enough. This is a 5-gallon bag, and I figured that 4 of them would have been a reasonable amount to put in each of those, because, they do spread and you want them to be happy and not too close to each other. And of course, we're going to have our companion plants in other containers very close to them. So you'll get to see that as well towards the end. But I just went in and just gently, pulled them apart and placed them so they have an even amount of space in the container. And that worked pretty well for me. Here's another tip, guys, and this is something I found out after the fact, that beets and carrots are really not the best options. If they're early, early beets, not too bad. But if you look, you see there's so much root here. And what happens, especially with carrots, is that when you plant them and you pull them apart, they have a large taproot, and then it can get disfigured when you put them in afterwards. So it's best to direct sow your carrots if you can, and just thin them out. The ones that you don't want, you pull those out or you pinch them off at the top, and then you have it going that way. And it's a similar situation for beets, not as serious, especially if you have like a smaller type of beets, but it's best to direct sow those, for where you're going to be putting them. So they just go there and they stay there. And of course, guys, you know me already how much I love my flowers. So while I was doing transplanting my vegetables, I also went ahead and just planted some flowers that I picked up at the garden center. And you can see the spiller, thriller, and filler. If you watch my previous video on how to have a very fabulous looking container garden, I went over all of those steps. So you can check that out under my video tab. But over here, I'm planting them out, and I thought it was a perfect time to just do it since, we're doing them together. So over here, guys, this is my larger raised bed. It's not going to be available for right now, so I just had to make do with what I had. And just to show you that the salvia is holding up so well, and I also discussed this in the previous video as well, which you'll see if you click on it at the end. So it still did well in spite of all of what was going on around there. So this is what it was here. I got another container, well, actually a couple more to fit everything in. And this is how they were spaced out. Even that little one, I had to get a little spot for that one down there. There were just so many, but I like that because, you plant your seeds and you get so much from it. Then, of course, the next thing to do was to go in and give them a nice soak so they can come up and be refreshed. And I typically recommend, another tip here, that you plant, you're doing your transplants or transplanting, do it in the evening, early evening, so that when you water them, they'll get to relax a little bit. And then overnight, they'll be nice and fresh. In the morning, they'll be ready to go to handle the heat of the day. So it's better to do it at that time. And also what I try to do as well, too, is to do them maybe like a day or two before it rains. So that way they get the benefit of the rain. Because I'm telling you guys, there's nothing like when the rain falls from the sky, all the nitrogen that it provides. These plants, they love it. So this is everything arranged right here for the moment. Again, once we're finished with our arrangement of the backyard, I'll probably put them on some pallets, paint them and put them on the pallets and put them on there so it looks a little neater. But for right now, this will have to do. And I'm pretty happy with how they were looking. You can see this is maybe like a week after they're coming up, and I'm going to fertilize them shortly. In the video, you'll see. Bear in mind that the potting soil that we typically use, that it does have fertilizer in there, so you don't have to necessarily start off with a slow release. If you don't want to, you can. But at the same time, if you wanted to just use like your compost tea or anything like that, you can always add those, maybe like after a week or so when the plants have come up and they kind of figure out that they've been transplanted and they're trying to, adapt to their new home. And there are many different options, of course, that you can use on there. And this is a tomato that I'm going to be putting, hopefully, in the raised bed. If not, I'm going to just have to up-pot it to a larger container. But you see my mint there, the Cullen mint. I have chrysanthemums there, which also keep some insects away. This rose bush, it was bitten up a little bit before we had put the, the companion herbs and flowers around here. So it's kind of like, a little bit behind. But at least they probably won't be attacking it too much more since we have all of these defenses in place here. So they're coming up very nicely. Now let's take a look at the recent smaller raised bed that I planted out with my tomatoes and peppers. You can see how they're doing it. See the flower to the bottom right, the pink one that is coming up nicely, and the tomatoes are blooming. So I'm going to be giving them a little bit of fertilizer, but we'll discuss it in a little bit further. But right here, I did put some rosemary because maybe 2 bites are on the coneflower that you just saw right there. It's not blooming yet, but I put the rosemary in there to keep away the bugs, and it has been working, guys. So I'm very, very happy with that. And this younger one right here is coming up. So in just a matter of time, we should be looking at tomatoes. And, subscribe so you can follow along and you can see exactly what happens with them. And this is really an invitation at this point, guys, to just hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell twice so you can follow along with my garden topics, tips, and tours. And we can exchange ideas as fellow gardeners and also get encouragement for newer gardeners. So over here, this is the fertilizer that I'm using. It's 511, which is an NPK ratio, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So it has a lot more nitrogen. So we're going to go ahead and mix it out. And I normally put about 2 tablespoons to 2 gallons of water. And then I go ahead and I water them. And of course, you always want to be sure. Another tip here, that your soil is moist, that you water your plants before you put your fertilizer on them, because you don't want the plants to be overwhelmed and shocked by it, because sometimes a little bit of a good thing can be too much. So it's good to have them wet first, and then you go ahead and you put your fertilizer on there. And again, typically when I do this, I do it in the evening, so that way they can just relax overnight and come back up the following day. So follow along, guys, for my future videos to see how these are doing, because we're going to go through all of that. And I'm just so super excited to see what is going to happen. And these are some blueberries that I planted as well too, which I will go over in a future video. So stay tuned for that as well. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I also came over and I also fed these over here. Now, maybe in another 2 weeks or so, I will maybe put like some banana peel water or some other type of fertilizer that has more potassium and phosphorus, because those help with blooms and fruiting. And as you can see, the tomatoes are kind of looking that way. The peppers are also putting out some little blossoms. So they're kind of ready to get going there. So guys, I hope that this helped you. And, whether you're transplanting from your winter sowing, or you're doing it from your what you sowed indoors, or just uppotting what you planted outdoors, I hope that these tips helped you as far as transplanting them out, and maybe will encourage you when the winter comes around that you can try winter sowing, and just bear in mind the little different things to avoid and the things that you could do to make it better. And I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much for the ways that you do support my channel, whether it's by sharing the videos, watching them completely, purchasing from the merchandise store that's under shop, or your channel membership. It all means so much to me and my family. Thank you so much for watching. Have a happy growing season, happy spring, happy summer, and I do hope to see you in the next video. Take care.